PhD in AI, so in this panel, I'll be time to time adding some research perspective to complement the panelists who come from very impressive as well as the diverse background. So first, I would like to start by just asking each panelist to briefly introduce themselves. Goda, if you can start, thanks.
Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Goda. I head AI and Applied ML at Swiggy. So I bring the industry perspective to this panel. Yeah.
Hi folks, I'm Bhanu Pota. I founded and run a consulting firm in technology diffusion into the public systems. It's called Zynga Labs. I also currently advise the Birla AI Labs as a senior advisor and also consulting senior partner for South Square Foundation on AI and EdTech, particularly looking into the education sector and mainstreaming AI into that space.
Hi everyone, I'm Richa. I'm the founder of Campus Fund. We invest in student entrepreneurs, college dropouts. So I bring in the perspective of investing in entrepreneurs who are building at the edge of what's possible, and especially AI is a very heated subject when it comes to the startup ecosystem. So yeah.
Right. Thanks again to all the panelists. So let's get into the discussion. The first question. So, I mean, there's a Sabjiwala outside Bharat Mandapam city today. I just crossed him, and I'm pretty sure he's good at predicting the demand that he has for each vegetable stock based on the footfall, season, or the weather patterns. But his setup is pretty small, right? If you have to scale up to, let's say, thousands of SKUs on platforms like Zepto or Amazon, it will not hold. So my first question is, where exactly is the line where you can separate, where predictive intelligence can add value over the human intuition? Because it's important to define it if you have to build AI products out of it. So Goda, would you?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I think the problem that the Sabjiwala is facing, even at the scale of Instamart, we do face it. When you bring in, for example, new items on board in new locations, which are very hyper-local in nature, you exactly don't know what kind of demand pattern you're going to see. So I think the problem of predictive intelligence and driving better decisions for planning, it exists at different levels in different organizations. But I think we are reaching a point where it's not anymore an advantage, but almost like a hygiene need for you to run businesses efficiently. Even if you take like medium and small enterprises, they almost make 30% of our GDP. So I think at a national level, we are at a scale where predictive intelligence and the technology adoption is at a level where we can start building efficiency and effectiveness into the supply chains.
Got it. Bhanu, would you like to share your perspective from?
Yeah, I think you started with an agri example, so I'll just jump the sector and go into health.
Yeah.
So we have ASHA workers all around the country, right? I think India has one of the largest network of frontline health workers in the form of ASHA workers. And all of them are digitally collecting various little bits of data of somebody sick here, somebody sick there, and all of that stuff, right? While we have all of that data, the gap really in situations where epidemics and pandemics kind of things start up is that there isn't a layer which is looking at all that data constantly and giving us predictive intelligence to create that time to be able to proactively respond to an emerging situation as opposed to kind of fighting against it once it has already happened. Right? While the data exists, that layer of predictive intelligence is missing. Right? So this is one classic example where we already have the data, but the layering is missing, and that's where I would really, and I'm taking a public systems example here, where there's workforce, where there's data, but then the middle layer is missing to be able to strategically predict and respond or preemptively deal with these things which are coming out.
Got it. Yeah, that's a very good insight. Thanks.
Yeah, so, predictive, as the word suggests, it's about being able to see what the future is going to look like with a fair degree of confidence. So I think predictive intelligence can be used across segments, right? It's just not one. It can cut across, it can be a great horizontal for us to become more efficient and cut down our losses, if we are able to, predict with a fair degree of accuracy, right? So it can make public systems, SMEs, much more better and efficient. And the most important thing is cut down losses so that, they can produce more, right? So I would consider it to be a horizontal cutting across different verticals. And, to be used in places wherein, a certain degree of, like a certain degree of inaccuracy is okay. It's not life-threatening. Anything which is beyond that, predictive intelligence would, work for it, is what we would think about it. Like, yeah.
Right. No, yeah, that's totally correct. I want to add on to the point that Bhanu briefly touched upon, that missing layer of predictive intelligence, especially in public sectors. And we live in definitely an interesting era. Foundational models have revolutionized multiple fields and gone beyond language applications. And in fact, being used even for structured data such as time series, tabular, which is fundamental, which is 80% of the organizations and very crucial in taking decisions. But we have seen a very common pattern, I would say, and maybe you will agree, that usually AI breakthroughs go in phases, and the big players are the early consumers. They benefit a lot. So Swiggy, for instance, or Flipkart, they gain the benefits. But let's say a vendor from a place in Mumbai, he just reads about it. So my question is, is this recent wave in agentic AI, as well as, let's say, the structured data foundational, is it something different? Can we expect that it will break that norm? Or are we just seeing a pattern that the gap is widened between these big and small enterprises, and we are mistaking it for democratization?
See, I think like Richa pointed out, if you look at predictive intelligence to become like infrastructure, if we think about it, you need intervention at multiple layers, right? Foundation models are one thing which is almost giving you the fuel to be able to say, now we have time series foundation models that have learned, across different diverse time series that's available, publicly, and it can detect patterns, and now you can use zero shot almost, just use it for inference for any case. But to be able to do that, there is a layer below that which is data, right? Now, when we talk about techies like Swiggy, Flipkart, the data, they are very native in that sense. You are collecting all the data. But when you look at public sector and medium and small enterprises, we have to have a way of standardizing data as well to be able to make use of it. And there are initiatives like AI Kosh, etc., which are enabling that. Like what UPI did to payments, you need something like that to standardize data collection and bringing it all together to really enable it.
Got it. Bhanu, would you like to?
Yeah, I think I'll swing across sectors. I will go to the education sector. Yeah. How many of you have children here? Just a raise of hands, right? Imagine what happens to a child if they don't understand the concept of borrowing for subtraction, and they are getting promoted across grades, right? And we are seeing this in our school data as to how math is becoming a difficult subject because very fundamental tasks which are capturable are not being dealt with, right? Now, if you look at, like Goddard pointed about, the data of what each child is in second grade, third grade math is all hiding in their notebooks. It is just a set of photographs away from coming to any predictive model. And if I can throw a lack of worksheets from second grade to a predictive model system, that is all what is required to kind of start isolating who are the children who are getting stuck with minus or carry or whatever, and then very surgically intervene inside the grade 2 before I can send them to grade 3. And this is the dilemma, right? The data is within our hands. At some places, digitization of the data is a gap. At some places, structuring the data is a gap. And even after the data is structured, I think the access to predictive models, can a district education officer have access to a model to run some data through, right? Those are the gaps which I'm seeing and which we need to plug.
Just want to add one more point.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about the layers, I think the point he makes is very valid. That this is where I think government can also play a big role, because you need to democratize not just the foundation models, you have to democratize technologies to standardize your data, you have to democratize access to compute, and a way of like the usability aspect of embedding it into your processes.
Yeah.
All these 4 layers are very important, and that's where I think you can build more public infrastructure around that.
Right.
No, completely agree. Like Gauda mentioned, it's like it should be an open stack like UPI is, right? And then, people can build application layers on top of that for different kind of use cases, right? And that's the only way, it can be truly democratized, right? And that is when everybody will have an equal chance. It will just not be about the bigger guys who have access to data and therefore they are building on top of it. I think UPI is a great example. I think when India has done it when it comes to the fintech ecosystem, why can't we do this, for data in general across sectors? And I think that is something that the government is also trying through ANRF, right? Their whole objective is to build open stacks across ecosystems and let startups build on top of that for different use cases. I mean, when we could do it once, why can't we do it again, right, as a country? And that's, I think, we should hope for that.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point for sure. So when we talk about UPI, for example, it is shown as a golden example of democratization. But in my opinion, so UPI has made technology, it has been a technology enabler, and it has just digitalized the way events happen. Let's say, anyways, in the past you paid, we just exchanged the cash, and we have easier ways to do that with the UPI, right? So now the problem here is not just when it comes to predictive intelligence. The problem here is not just with the tool or the interface that you have, but it's also about using this technology for something completely new, because predictive intelligence is not active at different segments, if you think properly. So it's mostly about the trust and the barrier that we have to use this technology, because one has to trust these machine over the human intuitions. That's always difficult. So what do you think from the ecosystem point of view, how could we help bridge this barrier? Would love to know your comments. Maybe Richa, you could just continue.
I think the startup ecosystem has a huge role to play in something like this, right? I mean, and you need a few examples who succeed in certain verticals and others can follow suit, right? You need a few successes. Somebody can pick it up on the education side. It can be, there are so many edtech startups, right? And AI is a boon for them if they can implement it at scale alongside with the government. There will be trust which will be built, right? So I think obviously the larger organizations and equally startups, right? Because that is also something that we as a country are, ambitious about. It takes time to build trust, but then if you can, prove it in certain segments, education, health, and a few other critical places, I think people will start believing in the predictive capabilities that a machine has, right? Just drawing a parallel to it, right? Before COVID happened, it was like for every small little meeting, we used to travel from one city to the another city.
Sure.
But when COVID hit, everything moved to Zoom or virtual meetings, and it has sort of become a norm. At least the travel has reduced, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we need a pandemic to make that happen, but something at scale which can be implemented, which builds trust, apart from UPI, which has already happened, tangible benefits when people start seeing. Maybe it can be how, the quality of education is improving at the grassroots level, or the kind of health services which can be provided to people at the grassroots level. If some proof points can be built at scale, I think that builds trust, right? And I think post-COVID era, humans in general have more belief and trust in machines. I think that has also happened.
Right. Nicely put. Just to add on to that, I think from our experiences at Birla AI Labs, we have been running some pilots. So we can clearly see that trust is also linked to the application that you have, as you rightly pointed out in earlier conversations, right? If you are talking about a predictive system which will deal with prediction of, let's say, low number of high volume trades, now that's critical because consequences are quite dire. But if you talk about automating some inventory stock at some Swiggy store outlet, then definitely. So we could start with these early wins, these applications, and gain trust and move on to more complicated challenges.
In fact, we did experiment with a few open weight time series foundation models. It's also, the trust also builds up through experimentation, because then you'll realize what it works for and what it does not, right? For example, if we take just zero shot, using them out of the box, you need to exactly know what are all the time series I need to give to the model. Is it just my sales? Is it also about the prices? Is it also about the weather, right? So it's not just about the models being available. Trust gets built up with you iterating with the usage on it to say what exactly works, and then you publish it, people talk about it, and then somebody else tries it. So there is also that virality associated with people experimenting, sharing, and then building trust around it.
Yeah, true. I do have a comment on that, but I would like to give Bhanu a chance to speak about his perspective first.
Yeah, I mean, trust is an important ingredient to any design at public system level and, or a population scale, right? But I think we also have to understand what is happening on the end user side, right? So in the traditional IT era, we were really expecting the builders to ensure that it is accurate, and the users were using it knowing that the builders have ensured accuracy, right? But with the emergence of last mile AI use cases on photos, layers on photos on the social media and all that, the attitude and behavior of a last mile user to experiment and play with tech and be okay with some things coming right and some things not coming right has already been shaped, right? So I think at sometimes we kind of overgate ourselves with trust, but I think we should also not forget the fact that the end consumer is also now maturing to be able to deal with part of it not working, part of it working, and the fact that I can be a beta user in a population scale system.
Yeah.
Right? We see this in the social media, we see this in networks, we see in all these places. So I just wanted to give that counter view. Yeah. And a lot of people today who are already touching Meta AI or Gemini or any of these tools, and they play with, this is good in generating pictures, this is good in generating audio, this is good in translating. The common citizen is also experimenting. And they have also kind of grown towards a scenario where they know that not one tool is great for everything, and I need to figure out which one is good at what, right? Earlier, that was the kind of role which the gatekeepers were taking. But now I think the citizens are also maturing on that direction.
Right. No, it's a brilliant point on that beta mindset that we need to adopt to enable the technology to grow. Great. But just wanted to add a comment to Goda's point where she gave a reference to time series foundation model. So just in case if it's a new term for audience, it's a foundational model that's trained on huge amount of time series data and used for predictive tasks in an out-of-the-box way as you use tools like ChatGPT or Claude to generate text. And even in this area, I can add my 2 cents from research perspective is, and Goda, you'll agree that usually every business has its own metrics when it comes to evaluating model. And also, that's also one of the reasons that it's very difficult to cross-compare the performance of different methods and different models. And research community has been actually actively working on curating this standardized benchmark to test these different models. And we are also actively contributing to that at Birla AI Labs. So I think that even industry should play a role here and help curate data sets to have this evaluation done in a more credible way. What do you think?
I mean, definitely, I think there are areas where, like if you take, for example, I worked at Ola before, or if you take like transportation data, for example, when Uber shared it, right? So industry does play a role in opening up certain data sets so that people can leverage and build on top of it. And predictive intelligence is definitely an area to add more diversity with industries' data coming into some of these foundational capabilities. It need not be built only on publicly available data.
Right. Sounds good. So let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about money, Richa. Yeah. So startups who are building solutions for MSMEs usually fail to get traction in the beginning, as you'll agree. And without initial traction, investors are not tempted to do the investments. So it's a chicken and egg problem. But still, I just want to add this perspective that now there are two ways that one could infuse this AI into the current workflows. One is having standalone AI products, and another one is integrating them to the existing workflows at MSME, such as, let's say, Khata Book or Zoho ERP for that instance, or otherwise go at a very low price entry point in the market from standalone product point of view, as Geo has proved in the past, and even ChatGPT is doing something similar right now. So my question is, like, what is a preferred way? Do we need an ecosystem that provides this sustained capital for a long time? Or is it better to do the smart work and embed these AI workflows into the existing workflows?
Very good question indeed. So I think I have a slightly different take, if we make standalone applications, it becomes very difficult to convince MSMEs to sort of buy into AI. It's adding to costs. Embedding to existing systems, yes, like Zoho, Khata Book, etc., it's possible. From a startup point of view, there's a lot of cash burn because you're just acquiring customers. You're not necessarily making money out of it, right? I think, a startup which can succeed in selling to MSMEs is the only startup which can say that if you implement this predictive AI system of mine, your cost to run your business will reduce this much, and I will take an X percentage of the savings, and that's how I make money. If you can do that, every SME will buy into that, right? They just know the language of, costs, right?
Right.
If you can, yes, it's a very bold thing to do. Like investment bankers do, only if this transaction goes through will I take a certain cut of it. You'll have to change the model for it to become acceptable for MSMEs, and the MSMEs are fair from their perspective, right? Why should I just add something which is adding more cost to me? If like predictive intelligence, talk about predictive maintenance, right? Just for an example, if I can prove that by implementing this application my energy consumption reduces by XYZ, this is the cost saving, give me a percentage of that, everybody will be happy
Fair
to do
enough,
it, right?
yeah.
That's the approach that should be taken according to me, and that's the startup which will succeed to sell into MSMEs. So
Pretty interesting.
I think I'd just like to also come in, right? When we look at the startups which are in the predictive intelligence area or in AI, right? There seems to be the game plan seems to be like everybody has to build a model, right? And a lot of people are trying to build a lot of models which are not great, mediocre, whatever, and a lot of energy is going into building models, right? But when you look at the markets, you really extract value out of the markets at the application layer, right? And the model is a game of a horizontal player. So I think startups also need to start thinking, do I go after building a model or do I look at somebody who has built a, let's say, for example, time series foundational model, and I actually focus only creating 6 or 7 application layers on that, right? And then commercialize on the market end, right? And connect it to the logic which Richa talked about, like how do I charge and pass back on to the model owner, right? So if everybody gets into creating models, then firstly, there isn't enough money to give to every startup to create a model, right? Secondly, there isn't enough patience on the capital side, right? So I think it is time for model startups to also to kind of take their bets. Like, are they going to be the horizontal model owners, or are they going to be the application layer which is commercializing and working back integrated with the model owners?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Would you
Just
like?
one point I want to add, which is the fourth layer that I was talking about, right? Which is, even if you have the model, you have the data, and you know how to use it and infer, but the usability layer of embedding into their process as of today is as important as using the most state-of-the-art model, right? Because change management is always tough, right? So how can you make it part of the DNA of the processes that MSMEs already have today, right? And then, of course, the point of getting the cost benefit, of course, holds. But the moat of startups will come in the data that you hold because you have built this application, and how well you are solving that problem that somebody else that's the barrier to entry.
True. No, totally valid point.
I'd just like to come in here.
Yeah, please.
So in the context of MSMEs, the time series model is particularly important because no MSME has enough data to inform a model, right? And none of the MSMEs want their data to be mixed with other MSMEs as well, right?
Right.
And in there, the predictiveness or the accuracy goes for a toss, right? But if there is a temporal time series model which has been trained, then I come with my little data and I just go zero shot and get my output and go do my work, right? So that layering is also something which I think needs to be thought through.
Yeah, absolutely. Just continuing on the model part, I think we are at the India AI Summit, and it would be unfair if we don't talk about sovereignty, right? So would like to know your individual perspective in predictive AI sovereignty.
I'll just take a shot hit.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's sovereignty at multiple levels, right? Yeah. Sovereignty of the data sets, sovereignty at the model, sovereignty for the compute, sovereignty for the power systems which are, powering up the compute, and can they be sustainable? But around sovereignty, there is also, particularly when it comes to India as a market, there is the affordability. Sovereign affordability is also another important layer. For example, if I'm somebody who's going to the public health center and I got my lung X-ray done because I'm coughing, can I add 2 rupees more to get my X-ray run through the TB predictive model, right? That pricing, sovereign pricing is or you want to call it affordability, whatever you want to call it. While there is sovereignty in terms of ownership across all these layers, there needs to be sovereignty on affordability as well for a country like India to be thought about.
Yeah, that's true. Would you like to add a point as well, Richa?
Yeah, so I think, again, as he mentioned, there are different layers to sovereignty, right? And again, there's an opportunity. I would bring in the startup angle here. There's an opportunity to build in every layer, but the kind of cost requirements are different to build in every layer, right? When it comes to compute, the kind of cost that will be needed, right? Like, it's insane. Probably it'll take some time for us to get there, right? Yeah. So I think from a data point of view at a nationalized level, I think that is government's, should be government's prerogative to sort of get that through, right, across different segments. In some places, startups can, build their own systems across different layers. So different players, including the government and startups and large enterprises, to try and bring in sovereignty across, AI as a whole, right? And some will require a lot of investment. Some can do with a relatively lesser investment, but I think it's very critical. I mean, as India, we have this ambition of Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? We've done a great job of it, wherein our domestic markets are shielded with a lot of external issues that happen. We are still shielded to a large extent. But AI is the future. And it becomes very critical for us to become Atmanirbhar in that, right? Otherwise, dependency is never good on anybody, right? We know that as a nation, right? And I think we all understand how important it is. The government should open more coffers to be able to build those capabilities within the country. Large organizations should also increase their R&D budgets. If you look at it in India, I mean, the large organizations don't spend that much on R&D, and it's a great initiative that Birla is doing with AI labs. Things like this are needed, and obviously VCs and private equity need to be able to pump in more and more money to be able to build that. I mean, to build compute in India, you can also imagine the kind of capital that will be needed, right?
True.
So different actors have to come together to make this happen, and I think government can be a good orchestrator for that, an enabler. It's important, but it's very critical for us as a country for a long term.
True. No, just to add on to that point, government is definitely supporting from compute point of view and also, let's say, data point of view, but that efforts could be extended to also to distribution and go-to-market strategies and awareness, increasing awareness about the adoption.
Correct.
Yeah. Just one point to add is, I think, like she said, sovereignty is it's too important not to do it, right? I mean, the summit happening itself is a statement in that direction. But I think one thing that's important is, given India has population scale and the kind of complex problems that, the plethora of them that we have to solve, I think it's important to invest as much in the application layer so that there is enough ROI being built up as we talk about being sovereign in the model and the data layer, right? Like he said, in an affordable fashion, can I price it and leverage the population scale to get the ROI on this? That's why application layer is equally important on the sovereignty aspect.
True. Totally.
I'd just like to come in here.
Yeah.
I think one of the angle which I think a lot of startups in the AI space miss out is that there is a duality of who you're building for, right? One is you can build for the private market. At the same time, you can also build for the public market, right? And a lot of times what I see is the startups really have a blind side on the public side of the market. Right. Let's just take a simple example and stick with that X-ray example, right?
Yeah.
So you can allow a diagnostic center to use the model at 40-50 rupees. You can also allow the same model to be used by the public health center at a 2-3 rupees. And it can come from the same startup, right? So that duality is also what I'm seeing as a missing gap in the system, right? But once you get the duality and penetrate into maybe 1 or 2 states, the scale which the public system has, the private system can't provide you.
True.
Right.
So just to add to what he said, there's another source of capital, which is actually the CSR capital, that can help in this duality, right? Because, for doing at public scale, startups may not have that kind of money, right? Because they eventually have to, make money, sustain themselves. Probably it can be, this can be included in the CSR ecosystem as well, to be able to fund this for public good at public scale, right? That's enough. That's a good amount of money that's available, right? Why can't a significant portion of that going in building the AI sovereignty of this country? Why not?
No, totally true. Just want to add my perspective from the research side on this. So when we talk about sovereignty, especially for predictive intelligence with tabular time series data, it is very, very crucial to have sovereign models, because these tabular and time series data, they are heartbeat of the economy of the country. And in fact, so Western world has already started adopting these technologies. There is a model called Kronos by Amazon, which is being used in increasing the operational efficiency of Deutsche Bahn, which is IRCTC equivalent of India. Then there are many enterprises in the West who have been adopting these foundational model technologies. I can go on and go on. So it is the right time for us that we develop a sovereign structured data foundation models. This is very important because we need to, we internally talk about what are the why the work on these foundational model space is important, and it's from three perspectives. One is the return on investment, which is like clear dollar impact. Second one is the return on experience, so you have these insights from the data that you have with least resistance, and you can make better informed decisions. And third one is the return on future, and I particularly want to stress on that because some of the things these LLMs are doing now were unimaginable 5 years back. And even in tabular or time series domain itself, already there have been very good models which are outsmarting the traditional methods by a good margin. So it's the right time for us to act on this, and in fact, we are quite actively working on this domain at Birla AI Labs. I think we don't have much time left, so would like to open up the floor for audience to ask questions. Panelists can take.
Hello everyone, I'm Aditya Tiwari from Mumbai. I just graduated as an AI engineer and I'm also currently working in that space. So my question is around accountability. Since predictive intelligence, the output majorly is decision making, and since we are democratizing it to the MSMEs, there isn't enough education or awareness on their level, right? It's like a magic potion that's being marketed today. How do we make sure that there's an accountability in the output with respect to predictive intelligence when it goes to that scale? Do we do that with guardrails or regulation or with the models, or do we do that with awareness or education, or a balance of both?
So anyway.
I can take. So I think there are three ways to solve for this, right? Firstly, I think in the way the offering is itself designed, right? One is to kind of say, here is my predictive output, and I'm giving this with this estimated accuracy. And I'm not making the decision for you, but I'm only giving you what I'm reading. And it is for you as a human in the loop, or actually, I'm AI in the loop, you as a human make the final decision. Just the design of how the service is built itself can cover a little bit for accountability. But on the other side, what we need to be careful about as a builder on the accountability side is to be very clear about what is the kind of data on top of which we have built, and is that data proximal to the kind of people who I'm servicing. And if that is not the case, and being transparent about on what data the model got built. So a little bit of transparency and a little bit of assistiveness as opposed to leapfrogging to make the decision, and actually forcing the human to make their own decision with the system being assistive is a great way to, from a design point of view, solve for it, right? At the end of the day, we know that there will always be some things which will break, right? So I think this human-centered design is a better way to start with, and as things mature, then I think the trust will automatically either get created or wean off based on whether the model is working or not.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone else?
You mentioned about predictive maintenance, something similar to this. But the whole world is either following preventive maintenance or breakdown maintenance. Predictive maintenance is not happening at all. So what do you say on
That's an opportunity, right? Like, that's an opportunity for startups to come and build, right? That is what I meant, it's not there. It's a huge opportunity. So anybody who wants to become a founder in the AI space, please try this out, yeah?
Yeah, I think I'll just add on to this, right? Predictive maintenance, even somebody who runs 5 trucks and has these national permit trucks, they can also apply, right?
Easily.
The amount of downtime when one truck goes for a toss is quite a bit. And if I have some IoT related data flowing in for my 5 trucks, and some model kind of says that this particular truck is at a risk of ABC, that's actually something which can be programmed,
This one's maybe more for Richa. Given that you're focused on university students who are becoming founders or in the process of becoming founders, are there any themes that you're starting to see in terms of like focus areas from the university students, the industries that they're targeting compared to maybe more seasoned startup founders?
Right. I think, so some of the areas which the students are targeting are the ones wherein there is not that much heavy regulation, right? Because regulation is something which you will be able to navigate only once you have the relevant contacts or you've had certain kind of a work experience and things like that. So industries which are low on regulation, that's one. Second, because the universities in India are actually actively building or upgrading the labs that they have, right? So students are able to build on the edge of deep technologies, right? So we are seeing a lot of startups building in space, a lot of startups building in battery chemistries and things like that, right? And AI is automatically actually no longer a vertical, it's a horizontal in every startup, right? It's like a given. So that's what the young entrepreneurs are building towards at this point in time in the universities. Low regulation.
Hello. Yeah. Very interesting discussion. Coming to demand planning, a lot of information comes in from the external world, like seasonality, like festivals, spike due to festivals or something like that. This is quite common across the sectors, across manufacturing. Whereas there is some part of the information which is specific to that business or that particular company. Like, we were having this interesting discussion about horizontals and verticals. What is your take on how should this be thought through by a group of partners and not one, right? Because there is this common piece and there is also a specialization piece here.
I think I'll take it and pass it back to you. I think a good example, I'm just building a use case straight away here, right? I think Swiggy knows a lot about what kind of flowers get ordered by homes in the festival season. That's the data they have. And if that data can be plugged onto the farmers nearby urban areas saying that this season, instead of putting pulses, can you put these flowers, right? So I think those federated use cases can come. But I think I'll go back to what Richa said. There needs to be somebody who's orchestrating this. Unless there is an orchestrator, all of these are going to sit in islands and then everybody is going to feel bad about something else happening on the other side, right? So I think there's an interesting case where some of the organizations who are in the space really need to add a federation angle to their body of work, right? It could be the farmer organizations, it could be supplier organizations, whoever, right? But with that, I'll pass it on to, Goda.
Yeah, I think the point is similar to what he is making, is a lot of external data that you refer to, right? Some of it could be, just public APIs like weather or that everybody can use. But there are data sources, for example, on Swiggy itself, it might be important to know what are people searching for on Google, right, for us to sense the demand, right? Now, that data sits with Google. Unless we can devise mechanisms where data sharing creates a win-win for everybody involved, it will always be difficult to enable such horizontal use cases. Hence, some of the thinking needs to go into how do we create those. I know in the airline domain, for example, there is something called global demand data, right? Where all the airlines share data and they reap the benefit out of it because now you're knowing global demand patterns, right? We have to devise mechanisms like that to enable this.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot for questions. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we can continue the discussion outside.
Yeah, I would just request all the panelists to stay back. There'll be a photo that the organization teams need to take. Maybe you can just keep the mics and stand and we can have the photo.
My question didn't come up, unfortunately. We are a business, MSME business only. For us, you suggest like Birla AI Lab, does it have any